This is Jennifer Gonzalez welcoming you to episode 76 of the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about what you can do when your school is low on technology. So there I am, right in the middle of a presentation about HyperDocs. I'm showing a group of teachers how they could use this online framework to build all kinds of interactive lessons, differentiate instruction, get students caught up after an absence. I was basically touting it as the Swiss Army knife of ed tech tools. And you can do this, and even this, and then it happens. One teacher raises her hand and asks, "What if we only have 2 Chromebook carts for the whole school?" You hear that Debbie Downer sound? Wah, wah. Yeah, that was my brain. The teacher went on to describe her situation. Far too often, the Chromebooks at her school sat unused because it was too much of a pain to sign them out and plan for short-term use. Teachers certainly couldn't use anything like HyperDocs or self-paced learning on a consistent basis because students could only get online every now and then. While some schools have already gone one-to-one with a device for every student, others don't even have reliable internet access, let alone enough devices for students to use, even if they share. This issue has a name. It's called digital equity. Just like with books, science equipment, extracurricular options, and healthy fresh food in the cafeteria, technology is now another resource that's abundant in well-funded schools and lacking in underfunded schools, creating one more way low-income students will fall behind their more affluent peers. When that teacher described her situation, I brainstormed a few possible solutions with her, but I knew better ones had to be out there. And they are. If you're in a school where the technology is in short supply and you believe your students are falling behind their peers because of it, you have options. In this episode, I'm going to share 11 specific solutions you can choose from to start improving the tech in your school. You can pick just one or mix up a few of them, but in this list, there's definitely something that can start to make a real difference in giving your students better access to the opportunities technology has to offer. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Raymond Geddes for sponsoring this episode. For over 90 years, this third-generation, family-owned business has been making fun and affordable school supplies, stationery, and toys that students love. Whether you're looking for merchandise for your student-run store, new fundraising ideas, or awesome rewards for your classroom treasure chest, Raymond Geddes has what you need from school supplies, fidgets, scented pens, non-candy Halloween treats, and much more. Visit cultofpedagogy.com/Geddes, Geddes, and use the code COP20 when you check out to get free shipping and 20% off your first order. I also want to thank you for the reviews you've left for this podcast on iTunes. I love the fact that I get reviews from new teachers, experienced teachers, even those who are retired. I love hearing about how you're listening, when you exercise, on your drive to work. I even read one from a teacher who keeps a Google Doc just to take notes from this podcast. Your reviews are so fantastic, and they help convince other teachers to give this podcast a shot. So if you value this podcast and you want more teachers to listen, head over to iTunes and leave a review. Thanks so much. Okay, so before we look at the specific ways you can solve the problem of insufficient tech in your school, let's get 2 questions out of the way. The first one is this. Does a regular classroom teacher have the power to give students more access to technology in a whole school? I ask this one first because I suspect this is the thing that might be holding you back, the reason you haven't done more than shake your head at your school's lack of tech. You're, quote, just a teacher. You have no control over the school's budget. You can't change the tax laws in your community. I think you have more power than you realize. Your administrators are doing the best they can with the knowledge and money they have, but technology is just one small piece of all the stuff they're responsible for. If you and a small group of your colleagues committed yourselves to improving your school's tech infrastructure, to identifying which changes would make the biggest impact and figuring out how to fund them without cutting into the existing budget, your administrator would be crazy to turn you down. I think it's definitely worth a shot. A serious, carefully planned shot. Which takes me to my second question. Will having more technology automatically improve student learning at your school? The answer to this one is definitely no. Simply boosting your school's internet bandwidth or adding more devices will not magically improve the education you offer. You need a better plan than that. Start by getting very clear on the learning goals you're hoping to achieve with more technology. What is the end goal? What will teachers and students be able to do with tech that they can't do now? Here are some things technology can do for your school. Consider whether your plan embraces some or all of these. Technology increases opportunities for students to take ownership of their learning through self-paced models, inquiry-driven projects, and authentic tasks that allow them to engage with content in ways that reflect how it is used in the real world. Another thing is that technology allows teachers to assess student learning more efficiently and effectively in order to differentiate instruction and challenge every student appropriately. Another is that technology provides students with more flexible options for learning so they can learn at school and at home, developing habits that will allow them to become lifelong learners. And finally, and this is definitely not all, but this is where I'm going to stop, technology gives students tools to create original products and share them with the world. Rather than simply doing tasks for school, they can pursue their talents and passions and share their work in communities of real artists, writers, filmmakers, photographers, journalists, scientists, historians, designers, and engineers. If your plan for increased technology doesn't allow for much of any of this, you may want to rethink things first. Over on the website, I've linked to a set of standards for educators and students put out by ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. These would be a good place to start when crafting a vision for technology use in your school. So let's explore some of the creative ways schools are addressing the digital divide. For everything I talk about here, I have outside resources that can teach you how to implement each of these ideas in more detail. To get those, come over to cultofpedagogy.com, click on podcast, and then go to episode 76. You'll find a full blog post with everything I talk about here, plus links to resources that'll teach you more about each solution. So the first batch of solutions I am calling workarounds. These are the fastest to implement. Rather than attempting to change the amount of tech your school currently has, these workarounds will help you make the most of what you do have. Number one is create centers or stations where students take turns using single devices. These might be permanent centers that students can access at any time, or centers that are part of a specific station rotation model. You might have devices set to one website or program, or you might create a menu of options that students can use during their time at that center. Even if your classroom only has a single computer, you can get a lot out of it by setting up guidelines and routines to make sure students know how and when to use it. Now on the site, I'm linking you to 2 separate resources that can help you get these set up. One of them is a 7-video series by an English teacher called Caitlin Tucker. This provides an excellent overview of how to set up and run a blended learning environment in your classroom. And blended learning is just combining sort of face-to-face, non-tech teaching with using online tools and videos to do some of the instruction. You sort of blend those together. So Caitlin Tucker walks the viewer through specific stations that she uses so you can get an up-close look at what students are actually doing at each one, along with how the tech is integrated into some of these. This is really going to help you imagine how you might do the same thing with your classroom and your content. The other resource is sort of a combination blog post and video by Tony Vincent. It's called Spruce Up Your Centers with Technology. And this one really focuses in on the specific things you can do to set up these technology-driven centers. He includes specific programs and tools you can use to create videos, provide instructions for stations, and the tools that you can use to give students opportunities to be creative. So this one really drills down into the very specific types of technology. Okay, so the first workaround is centers and stations. The next workaround is to implement a Bring Your Own Device program, or BYOD. This type of a program allows students to bring devices from home for use in school. This can quickly increase the number of devices in your school without the need for any increased funding. If you choose this route, do it carefully. Without a clear plan in place, a BYOD program can cause lots of problems, and your school will quickly end up abandoning it and saying it didn't work. So I'm including 2 resources that are created, with the experience of schools that have already done it. They include advice on getting buy-in from parents, creating an acceptable use policy, and also making sure that your school network can actually handle the increased use by more devices, and a lot of other tips like that. So there's 2 of them. There's a BYOD guidebook, and then there's one called 9 Best Practices for Getting Started with BYOD. The third solution is to use more minimum tech tools that only require the teacher to have a device. So I'm just going to give 3 examples. There are more, but these are, kind of popular. One is called Plickers. The way Plickers works is that each student gets a printed out piece of paper with sort of a symbol on it. And this one is unique to their name. It's, every kid gets a different one. If you turn the paper in 4 different ways, that represents A, B, C, or D. And so the way this works is sort of like a multiple choice. If you ask students a question and say, is this, or that, and they can choose A or B, the students will all hold their papers up to you, and they have to turn it in a certain way that indicates that their answer is either A or B. They all hold it up. You as the teacher hold a smartphone or a tablet that has Plickers app loaded into it, and you just scan the whole room like you're taking a panoramic picture. What Plickers will do is read every kid's piece of paper instantly, and it will it'll register what their response was. So you get instant feedback on how they responded, and then you can use that for formative assessment, and the students can reuse that same piece of paper. So this is a really good tool for a low-tech classroom where you don't have a lot of other ways of using this type of fast response system. So that's one. Another one is called GradeCam, which allows teachers to create paper answer sheets that look a lot like the old Scantron sheets that we used to use. And you can give students a test or a quiz or a formative assessment, and then you can have them turn it in and use a smartphone or even a document camera to scan all of them really quickly. And GradeCam will tell you how they did. It'll grade all the responses immediately. So that's another one. And then the other one that has nothing to do with sort of assessment is Skype, which, if you are not aware, Skype has really developed a couple of incredible programs for the classroom. 2 of them are Mystery Skype, where you hook your classroom up with another classroom similar where else in the world. You almost set like an online date with them, but the students in both groups don't know where the other classroom is, and they have to go through a series of yes/no questions to try to figure out where the other classrooms are. So it's great for sort of lessons in geography or languages or world cultures or even current events. And then the other one that they do at Skype are virtual field trips, where you can sign your class up to go on like an expedition with an expert in any given field. The example that comes to mind, I think I've even talked about this on other podcasts, is the grandson of Jacques Cousteau is also an underwater, a sea explorer. That's definitely not the technical term for it. Marine biologist, I think it is. So Skype uses this as an example. The students, he actually takes his own device into his underwater vehicle, and like the students actually get to go, but it's not just a video, it's a Skype where the kids can ask him questions live. It's like a live demonstration, but it's, across the world. So for something like either of those, Mystery Skype or virtual field trips, all you need is one teacher computer that's hooked up to the internet. So those are just a couple of examples of minimum tech tools that a teacher can use and take advantage of technology without having a lot of technology in your school. The fourth workaround is to create a tech hub at your school where most devices are kept in one central location. So if you have these 2 Chromebook carts, for example, they might both be kept in the library, and maybe your school has, one smartboard. You could set it up in the library so that all of these things happen in one place, and then students and teachers go there to use the devices. In episode 38, I interviewed an administrator and the school librarian at a place called Big Walnut Middle School. They had a really underutilized library of just, books, and they really wanted to improve the way students were using that library. So over the course of the summer, they developed a whole new plan for that library where they bought a couple of new devices and kind of reallocated where they were keeping some of their other technology, and they sort of made their media center the hub of the school for technology. And then they set up a system where teachers would send kids to the library in small groups or as individuals to take advantage of different technologies at different times. So if I have a student who's working on a specific project maybe, and they finish their classwork early, I will send them over for half an hour to work on another project, so that the tech in your school that you have then really gets maximized in its use, instead of things just sitting there waiting for a whole class to check something out or use something. You can have different students from different classes coming and using this stuff at the same time. And it requires some planning. I would recommend that if you like this idea, that you listen to that episode and take a look at the pictures too that I've got on the website for it. It's a really cool plan, and they're finding that kids are using their school library a lot now. It's always busy, it's always active, and the tech that they have in their school is really getting maximized. So those are the 4 workarounds. Those don't require adding any new technology. The next set that we're going to look at of solutions are going to be ways you can actually raise more funds. Before I get into those, I'm going to take a quick break to tell you about one of our sponsors, Kids Discover. Kids Discover's mission is to give every classroom science and social studies material they can truly get excited about. Available in both print and digital formats, Kids Discover's library is made up of the most commonly taught subjects for elementary and middle school students. Kids Discover's glossy print titles are packed with iconic photography, original illustration, and digestible facts. And their digital library, Kids Discover Online, offers multiple reading levels, an assessment builder, and single sign-on with Google and Clever. This back-to-school season, they're excited to announce 25 brand new social studies titles, including World's Early People, American Government, and 13 Colonies. You can check out all of their new titles today. Just go to cultofpedagogy.com/kidsdiscover. Okay, so this second set of solutions involves raising more funds to actually get more tech into your building. So solution number 5 is raise funds for specific hardware and equipment through a crowdfunding site like Donors Choose. I think a lot of teachers already know about Donors Choose, but if you don't, I'm going to explain how it works very quickly. Individual teachers go on, they create a free account, and you set up a project. So for example, let's suppose you would like to have 5 Chromebooks just for your classroom so that they're always available for students to use. On Donors Choose, you can link to their approved vendors, and I think one of them is Best Buy. So you can go right over to the site. You can choose the devices that you would like that would be the most appropriate for your students. And then you sort of put them like in a shopping cart and say, this is what I would like. And you write up a description of how you would use them. You can even include photos of your classroom, and you create basically a unique web page for this particular project. So a dollar amount is assigned, and then you sort of advertise it to the community, it could be to friends of yours. You can put it, wherever you would like to advertise it, to parents. And then what happens is over the next couple of weeks or so, people donate to it. And sometimes people you don't even know donate to it. Anybody can go on Donors Choose and just browse. They can browse by region. They can browse by socioeconomics of the school. They can browse by first-time projects, and people will just donate. I've personally donated to random strangers who are doing projects that that sound cool. Donors Choose will also do matching programs where in the first, 24 hours or whatever of a project, they will match donations. So anyway, a lot of teachers get this stuff funded on Donors Choose and rather quickly. And then what happens is once the donations have come in and you're fully funded, then they take that money, they purchase the items, then they're delivered to your classroom. And then you have them. It's really simple. You don't have to go through any type of budgeting or, anything with your school. It's just they're yours. So that, I think, is the simplest and quickest way to get more technology for your classroom or for your school. Another option, and this is solution number 6, would be to partner with local businesses and organizations to raise funds. It would be more of a long-term thing, but a lot of the businesses in your area want to be able to help the schools. It's just that they don't necessarily know how to do it. They really do need to form partnerships. So what you can do is make a clear plan for something that you need and how it's going to impact students. Write it up like a business plan, and then look for corporate partnerships. Look for local businesses. This can be restaurants. This can be, lawyers' offices. This can be, anything. And what this does is it provides your students with the things they need. And it also provides this business with a little bit of publicity, basically a lot of, goodwill publicity showing that they're helping the school. So they do benefit. It's also a tax write-off for them. So, it is a win-win situation for everybody. On the website, I've linked to a story of a high school in Cincinnati that was really, really just in bad shape. And what the principal did was he partnered with their local phone company to get devices and tutoring for students. The local phone company said that they would provide a laptop to every student that maintained a 3.3 grade average. If they slipped below that, then they would lose it. And it was all set up ahead of time. And they said ultimately they never had to take any back, that students were able to get good enough grades, and their graduation rate went way up, and they formed this whole relationship with the company that, the company employees came in and tutored the kids, and it was this really, sort of long-term thing, and they're continuing to support them, and it's even branched out into like a larger company that's affiliated with the phone company. They've helped to rebuild a whole new school building. So these types of things can really grow into something pretty incredible and profitable, I guess, for both groups. The third way that you can raise funds, and I think this is probably the most difficult, would be to apply for grants. And I just say difficult only because I think with teachers, none of us have really ever been trained in grant writing. And so there would definitely be a learning curve. I would recommend finding somebody who's already done this in the past and getting their help on it. On this site, I've linked to a couple of places where you can go to start looking. Finding grants is not that easy. And there appears to have been a program called Computers for Learning associated with the federal government right now, and this is the fall of 2017 or almost the fall of 2017. The link is just dead now. I don't know what's going on at the White House right now, but it seems that program has either been stopped or it's just not being maintained right now. I don't know if that's going to come back up, but that seemed like it was a vibrant program that might not be available right now. But I've linked to some other places where you could start looking for grants. There are some people who are huge fans and are very active. I think a lot of grants end up not even getting used because people don't know how to go about applying for them. So check out the links. And if I find anything new that's got, more opportunities than the ones I found, I'll add it to the blog post and keep that updated. Okay, so I have got 4 more now. These are solutions 8, 9, 10, and 11. And this last batch of ideas is what I'm calling off-campus solutions. When technology is limited at school, it is often limited at home as well, which can put your students at a further disadvantage. So when you're addressing digital inequities in your school, think beyond the boundaries of your campus. One solution is, and this is number 8, are portable Wi-Fi hotspots, which can be checked out by students, giving them internet access in homes that wouldn't otherwise have any. So what these hotspots look like, almost imagine like a smartphone that's just kind of like a little bit bigger and a little bit thicker. These are just little cases that have this kind of little brick inside them, and kids can take them home. They almost look like those hard drives that you can plug in, those little portable hard drives. They take them home, they plug them in, and then that provides sort of temporary internet access. The company that I'm finding, and I'm not sure if multiple companies do this, but it's certainly the leader right now in this, is a company called Kajeet. That's Kajeet. And their website is kajeet.net. They offer something called a smart spot. And what's nice about it is that it's made for education. So it can be filtered so that students can only access educational content. A lot of schools are using this. I'm linking to a Wisconsin high school that uses it. There are public libraries that'll check these out to just members of the public in general. So this is an option. Kajeet also has another solution, and this is number 9, which is Wi-Fi enabled school buses. These allow students to get work done on the ride to and from school. And I'm linking to an article about a California school district that installed these systems on its buses and even has the buses park in students' neighborhoods so that kids can continue to work off of that Wi-Fi even when they're at home. They've got to get close to the bus, and it's obviously not ideal, but it's a solution. It's something. Okay, so we've got the portable Wi-Fi hotspots that can go home. You've got Wi-Fi enabled school buses. Another option is summer device checkout programs. So whether your school is one-to-one or eventually gets that way or not, but if you've got devices at school and can make them available for students to check out over the summer, this allows students to continue their access over the summer months. I'm linking to an article about a Kansas school district that did that and it really worked out well. And, a lot of schools worry, or a lot of teachers worry about, what about these devices getting lost or stolen? And you can read about sort of how they work around that and how they plan for that, because that's, we're definitely not just handing stuff out and then just, hoping it does okay. They've got plans in place for maintaining and keeping the devices safe and what to do if they get lost or broken. Okay, so then the final solution to a lack of tech in your school or your community is to build the connectivity in the whole community. So there are a lot of solutions that are outside the realm of school that are working on just getting unconnected communities connected. There is an organization that has devoted itself to it. It's called Everyone On, and that's everyoneon.org. Their mission is to get low-cost internet, refurbished devices, and computer literacy training to unconnected families. So that would be an organization to look into also, because they might help to bridge that gap between school and home. And then also I'm linking to a great article about a North Carolina town that really took advantage of a lot of different resources. They got their local church to get Wi-Fi and then agree to sort of open their doors for a set number of hours every day so that kids could go there after school to get homework done. And they had some local businesses and restaurants put a little decal in their window if they had Wi-Fi for students and a set number of hours there. So they really looked at pooling resources from a lot of different places in the community so that students were supported all day long. So this is just one more idea to be thinking about if you're noticing that kids in your community just don't have the access to technology that they could. So I hope that this list of ideas has given you some place to get started. For links to all the resources mentioned in this episode, visit cultofpedagogy.com/pod and click on episode 76. To get weekly updates on all my newest blog posts, podcast episodes, and products, sign up for my mailing list at cultofpedagogy.com/subscribe. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day. This podcast is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. To learn more, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.